So, Julius, welcome back to BrøndbyLyd. And sorry for my voice. I don't know why this always happens when I have to do big podcasts, but I'm happy that you're here again. It's been half year, 8 months since we did the last podcast. Then you were technical director, now you are football director in Brøndby. So congratulations.
Tak for modtagelsen. Thanks for being here again, having the chance to talk to you. Yeah, it's been almost a year. Time flies, but happy to talk with you again.
Yeah, start with what's new, your new role in Brøndby. How do you feel?
I feel good. Obviously, very privileged and honored to take this role on. It's a big club, and that carries a big responsibility that I take very seriously.
And new job, new role, same Julius, or how do you handle like switching lanes inside of the same club?
Well, absolutely the same, Julius. I think that's very important in whatever position you take, that you stay true to who you are, that you stay true to your integrity, to your authenticity, and that's what I try to carry on now in this new role as well. But at the same time, being here for this time already, I have very strong relationships inside the club with a lot of very strong leaders in this club that we all need. So they will not see a different guy now.
How are you going to make this role yours? Because we know you also work very closely with Benjamin Schmidt, of course.
I need to give it my own touch and bring in my qualities. And in my role, I had the privilege of working very closely across the whole club. And I think that's something that I will carry on and bring to this role as well. We've established a strong connection on a person, on a human level. I think that's always a prerequisite to do well, but also on the topics we're working on. So the connection, for example, I have with Bjørn is something that I really cherish and that I want to use for the best of our club to bring masterclass closer into the decision-making rooms, but also across our staff in the Superliga, whether it's in performance analytics, football operations, also now with Thomas joining as a head of recruitment. Those are the relationships that are very important, that I'm very keen to develop and to even strengthen further, because it's about all of us. It's about all of us collectively driving this club forward.
The club has been criticized for lacking a strategy, at least one that has been clear to the fans. Can you elaborate a little bit on your thoughts on that?
No, I fully take the criticism also serious, and I think it's important that we listen, and I think it's also important that we are clear where we want to go. And where we want to go is one part. So the ambition of the club, I don't even need to speak out, because you enter this building, you see the trophy, so you know what this club wants to achieve. That's unspoken, and you know it and you feel it. So we need to focus more on what gets us there, and what do we have to do on a daily basis to make us able to achieve those things. So we have to be a club that focuses on the process and not the outcome of it. And when you start that, you need to start looking at yourself, and you need to start realizing what are the core things that this club stands for, and how we translate that into how we work. If we talk about fællesskabet, that to me means cohesion, and cohesion is not only I care for you and I work with you and for you, but also that we align with masterclass in our processes, so that also a professional side to those values that we have to translate into how we work. And one part is creating that alignment and cohesion, especially with masterclass, but also with the administration and the women's department. That's maybe, of course, on a professional level, but also on a human level, to be aligned around a shared direction. Because I think and believe very strongly that inside this club, if you have that, you can release a lot of energy and commitment inside this building, inside every individual here. And that's what we have to lean into.
What do you think are the most important learnings that the club, the leadership, the ownership has done in the last year here? Also looking back on the last two coaches only being here 9 months.
Yeah. I think what's important to say that it always comes with a good intention, and the idea of making this club better. Every decision is driven by that, whether it's our decision on the ground, but also ownership and the board's decision. That's only to get the club forward. What's very important, and I think the spirit that we've now had in this year with a lot of things happening, has gotten us to a point where we've really reflected on things that are non-negotiables that we want this club to look like going forward, and that we need to prioritize. So I do think everyone takes things that happened in the past very seriously and tries to learn from it to the best that we can do to bring this club forward. And what's important is just strengthening that clarity, the clarity that we need, not only in terms of the goals we want to achieve, but also what we want to stand for and how we use that to the best of our advantage. And if you look, and you know better than me, the club has been the strongest when it has carried out these values to the utmost extent, not only on the pitch, intensity, courage, aggressivity, and all these kind of things, but also off the pitch. It's important that we are representing those values: Fellesskab, Müll, Arbeitermentalität, Winnermentalität, Intensität. Those are all key values, and we need to translate them. You cannot just put them on a nice picture and a frame. You need to think, okay, how do we get people that represent that? How do we collectively represent that? And I think over the last months, we as a club have shown that too inconsistent. I would say we have shown it on instances, and particularly if we look at the last match we had here, I think that's the energy that you need in the stadium, and that the energy comes from the stands, but that energy comes from the pitch. And I think from my learning is that in this club there's such a strong identity and engagement and love from the supporters, from every fan to the club. So if you look at the logo, you have a feeling. If you come here to Sam, you have a feeling, and we want that feeling, that strength on that feeling to be equally high for us as a group, for the players on the pitch, because that really creates a force. And if we can ignite that force with how we present ourselves and how we connect to the environment, I think this is a club that has a strong power.
Will that take, it's something we talked about a lot in my podcast, that because I've been looking closely at the masterclass for more than 10 years now, 12 actually, and there's a very clear playing style in the masterclass. Should it be the same for the first team?
It should be a collective playing style. I think if you educate young players, there is nuances to it, because the higher you get, the more is about winning matches and what you do collectively. If we have young players, we want to develop them individually. We want to have them challenged in their position, but we want them to have the intention. Like, for example, if we look at how we work in the transitional phase, that's a very big component in masterclass, and you have two options in each transitional phase. You can counter press or you can fall back. If you win the ball, you can try to attack or you can try to circulate the ball. And I think everyone knows what our priority should be. Yeah, because if we're talking about intensity and courage, then it's the option that is the active and the proactive one. And when the players are young, it's not so about how they do it really tactically, but we just want a player where the switch in the head goes on and he knows what to do. So we build these players that have this that carry that within their heart, in their brain, that it's like a motoric knowledge that you have. Okay, now I have to go. And then the further you get, you learn more how you collectively do it tactically on the pitch, how you press in certain situations, for example. But those are things where we look forward now and try to prioritize these more highly. If you look at the last game, I think you saw a team that can do that. And we believe there's a squad that can do that. It's more about developing these particular aspects that make this club unique, and that is also just wanted and desired by everyone that goes into the stadium and bring it out more.
And was Steve Cooper standing in the way of this development?
No, Steve was not standing in the way of this development. If you look at his game model, then he was also representing these kind of things. However, if we look at the performances and the translation of that game model into the pitch, we can say that we have not consistently shown those kind of qualities on the pitch enough than we would have used to want, and obviously then also the results didn't match the desire we had on achieving those performances.
I remember the first podcast we did together, you mentioned Det Vilde Vestegnen. Yeah. I really like that reference.
Yeah.
Can you try and explain to you, what does the Vilde Vestegnen mean?
Vilde Vestegnen to me means that we are in a way also wild. So there is when the passion and the intensity takes over. Sometimes it's not about, this like the last end of structure or the last detail in our tactics. It's about committing to it, being brave. We've been a pioneering club in Denmark with a lot of things we did in the past, and I've tried to educate myself very much on the history, and we've been a club, for example, with Martin Olsen, where we trained harder than everyone else, or also the period with Ebbe Skodal, we had a team that was pressing actually and was standing for this kind of intensity. And then there's a Zorniger era that we had, and we need to carry that from the past towards the future. So the stadium is wild and it goes mental, and that's what we need to bring out of the stadium, but it comes from us. I know everyone here is eager for us to show that and is eager to contribute from the stands. But it comes, the connection is between the team and the stands, and the guys and the women in the pit in the stands, and we need to ignite those kind of connection, because that connection can do a lot of things.
How do you train? How do you translate Vilde Vestegnen into the pitch?
Yeah, I think one important issue is obviously now the head coach recruitment, and recruiting a head coach that stands for these kind of values, not only as a person but also in the way he wants to. In the way he sees football and the way he loves football, to be played out in a way that matches and creates that emotional connection with the fans and supporters inside the building. And then it's about the training environment on a day-to-day basis. So that's a key issue, of course, but also recruiting players that bring the right mentality, the right mindset to do that, but also the right physical capabilities. And then you add the skills on top, because you can't only have athletes, but you need athletes. But you also have to have skillful players that can solve one-to-one situation and create something.
And recruiting players for Vilde Vestegnen, I'm going to use that forever now.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Is that different from what you have recruited for earlier?
No, we've always tried to use all the resources we had to look into the players. Of course, the skills are the easiest to look at, because you can look at the matches, you can look at their data, and you see what they're good at and what they're not good at. Then you can look at the physical parameters, and we've played a very important part on that in the winter window as well, to look at players that have physical capabilities. If you see Bartosz Slisz, for example, I think that's a player that doesn't stop running. And that,
he's probably running around somewhere in Europe right now.
Yeah, he's such an intense player, but we also try to do that for the others as well. And of course, there's always a market and a competition around players, but we need to be very specific. And we've also very closely looked at our players and their cultural aspects that they bring, that they have a growth mindset, that they understand that there's a difference between pain and discomfort. You always have to have some kind of resistance and some kind of discomfort that you have to push through. So we try to be, of course, it's like human quality, so it's not the easiest to detect, but we try our best now to create a process where we really, really look into that as much as we can. At the end of the day, they can bring all the qualities, but there are so many reasons why a transfer can work and work not. The coach, the playing style, the environment, the adjustment, family, so many things that are not fully in our control. What we need to do is on all these aspects to reduce the negative probabilities that it doesn't work out.
When you were presented in your new role, there was many words about the masterclass, about coming back to the roots of some kind. Now I'm translating a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit more about the thoughts behind this? Like we have seen the last year under Kuba more masterclass players than under many Danish coaches. So what are the thoughts about more masterclass in the future?
I think we've started this journey already last year, where we tried to have a very clear transition framework, and with that, we try to be very systematic of giving the guys a chance, being exposed. So these are the things we can do really systematically. We cannot just guarantee playing time, because at the end it's natural competition, but we can guarantee exposure, training time, understanding, support, individual development. All those things we're working on. We're continuing to work with masterclass, also with the school, how we can make the under 19 more like a second team, training in professional environment, closer to the first team in terms of the training times, getting more playing minutes through to tournaments and these kind of things. So to make them ready, because we want them to jump from the under 19 to us directly. And there's a strong pipeline coming. We've also looked at recruitment of players. We want to be a strong Danish academy with strong players from this area, from this region, ideally, but we also need to broaden our scope towards all of Denmark and select a few very good international and Scandinavian players to have a bigger reach, because the pipeline is strong. And also in our squad planning, we need to be clear that there's a certain amount of players that we want to have from Masterclass. And again, we can't be too dogmatic to say, okay, there's 10 spots for Masterclass, because then you have an imbalance. Of course, every place in the Superliga squad needs to be deserved. But we believe there's so much quality there that the guys are earning their place in the squad. And we are going on a track of trying to improve that even more going forward.
Has the club, in your opinion, been too not aligned earlier? Like regarding the masterclass, regarding playing style, we could change from coach to coach, like for transfers, also affected by who's the coach now. Are we playing with wing backs, or are we playing with a back three, back four, like this?
I think every club needs to understand what is a coach decision and what is a club decision. And I personally believe coaches feel very well if they're giving a clear framework in which they operate. So it's very clear who's driving the recruitment and how the involvement of the coach, for example, looks like. If in the recruitment process the playing style, the playing identity of the coach is very much considered as one criteria, so you naturally don't get to points where you are misaligned. So I think one part of is in the decisions you make, you can already get the right conditions so to create alignment, but it's also the daily work a lot, and that's where I try to use my role, and I will continue to do that going forward, to create alignment, to make sure that there's no hindrances in player pathways, that we can open the doors, that we develop in every aspect around the first team, whether it's mental performance, physical performance, data and analytics, recruitment. We need to improve day by day, so this work ethic needs to be very high, and we need to be a club where players come and they get better. I think that's where we need to focus on the process, and not so much on that silver lining and that outcome. That's all what we want to achieve, but it starts with us on a day-to-day.
Obviously, your first big task will be to find the new head coach for Brøndby. What are you looking for?
We're looking for a coach that represents a lot of the key values that this club stands for. So that means that he's very collaborative, that he wants this to be a collective approach. Of course, as a head coach, you stand in the front and you lead from the front, but you lead with a group of leaders, and you want the players to buy into our direction, a shared direction. So the collaboration is a strong point. This mentality of hard work, of togetherness, of also being courageous to take some risks are things that we look for in a head coach going forward. I think Steve has also been very courageous in giving these guys, for example, their debuts and playing them, but also pointing out things where we have to develop. So that's also things we want to carry forward with us. With that said, of course, we need a strong leader, someone that leads with clarity, with consistency in the messaging, but they can also relate to the group collectively. And the group is not only the players, also the club, but also individually to players. Players need different kind of approaches, and the coach needs to be more dimensional to get these players. So that's important. And then the last aspect, besides the playing style and the fit in alignment with the desired way we want to express ourselves on the pitch, is the personality. You need a good person. You just need a good person that has the right value system, that wants to do well, that cares, and that gives everything.
Is nationality important? You knew that question would come because we just had a press conference, and now it got asked a lot also.
I think important is that we have someone that is quickly able to understand this club, immerse himself in this club, and share a lot of the things that the identity of this club stands for. So the understanding of the context, and the context is Scandinavia, it's Denmark, it's Brøndby, it's this club, it's his stadium, and it's his league. So a coach that has an understanding of these aspects, of course, has an advantage or a higher likelihood of fitting the criteria and being able to adapt very well and understanding what needs to be done. So there is a key prioritization around coaches with experience within Scandinavia, also culturally. I think I learned also coming here as a foreigner, I don't think we are so far apart from each other geographically, but also culturally, in the way we treat each other and the way we want to be led, that we want collaboration, we want discussion, we want honesty, transparency, and we want our voices to be heard. So of course a cultural fit is more likely with a coach from Scandinavia. With that said, it's about the personality of the coach, and a coach can have whatever kind of password and be a huge success here if he fits that criteria. So there's a prioritization, but we're also not closing the door on any candidates that are better.
What time frame are you working on?
We have now a period between the seasons. The preseason is starting in, I think, 3.5 weeks from now. On the 19th, we are reporting back. So of course we would like the coach to be onboarded properly, to understand, to take the time to meet the people here, to get some deep dive into the club and know the processes, so he can set up the preseason also in the best way to carry it out. If you just rush it one day before, then it's going to be rattling left and right a little bit. So, but I would not want to rush this process, and we do not want it. We want it to be as quick as possible, but as thorough as necessary. And being thorough means that we go really into the depth of the coach, of his personality, of the way he plays, the way he leads, how he interacts with people, and that is the key thing. And of course, we are not wasting any second to do that, gathering our information, references, data, collecting that, and then we will engage in personal discussions with the coaches.
Why should the fans believe that the next coach will be here for more than 9 months?
Because we're going to be very thorough in the way we approach this. And also, I said a few of the criterias, but I think it's important we start building and continue to build and focus on the process. If you're focusing on the progress, you're focusing on getting better day by day for the long term. And we would like a coach to buy into that direction, and that direction has a time dimension to it. Of course, if a coach joins and you evaluate continuously on every position, that includes myself, includes the coach, and at some point you can come to the conclusion that maybe a collaboration has to end. But we want to be very thorough in the different criteria, because if we do that, we have the highest chance that this coach will join for longer and will want to stay and renew maybe at some point, because I think that's what every club is striving for. And in clubs with big pressure and emotions, it is a bit more difficult, but nevertheless, it needs to be our key target to get towards continuity.
This sounds also like a little bit more longer perspective project, and which requires also a little bit more patience, maybe also from us fans. But Jan Beck also just said that we still have to compete. Like in the top for the championship. So how are these things aligning? Like, what would a 4th place still be reason to sack the coach, or is the top 3 the target still? Are you thinking about this differently? Can you try and explain this?
No, of course, I share the ambitions of the club, and from your experience that this club, without speaking it out loud, screams for that ambition, and we have to realize that, and that is a huge responsibility we have. But for me now, the focus is on the process. So success for me looks like creating a very collaborative culture, creating a stronger alignment between Masterclass and the Superliga, competing aggressively day by day, week by week on the pitch, and showing the expression that we've shown last week as a benchmark continuously and consistently. And I think if we represent that, then people will be patient, because people will lean into that, will see themselves in that. And that's what we want. We want people to come here and say, hey, this is our team, and this is Brøndby in a way. And it's not easy because it requires a lot of hard work and a lot of smart decisions, but we are confident we can get there. And the more buy-in you have collectively around the organization and around everyone that supports us, the more patient you are. But ideally, we don't want anyone to be impatient, because impatience means that maybe the results are not following up. But we believe if we focus on that, the results are a natural consequence of it.
If you look into the summer transfer window, of course, January was very busy.
Yeah.
Now I think you need the coach, of course, but what kind of transfer window are we looking into, do you think?
Yeah. We're looking into a window that is looking to evolve the squad. I think we need to have a strong belief also in these players, the ones that have joined us longer ago, but also recently, and the players we are continuing to bring through masterclass. Of course, we also need to look on different positions and see where external input is needed, but we always want to benchmark it against our masterclass players, while always considering the balance we need to have in the squad. We need to have a strong spine of players, and I feel that there's a group of players taking responsibility, taking on leadership roles, and around that we have a very good foundation to build, but we build selectively, not by quantity, but by quality and by coherence. So squad coherence is a big topic for us, and squad coherence is not only achieved by adding players, but also by maybe subtracting players, creating a good squad size, a good mix of ages, of ambitions, of hunger, desire, of experience and leadership, and that can create a good and functional squad.
A few players are going out this summer, Thomas Mikkelsen being one of them. He has openly said he wants to continue in Brøndby.
Yeah.
Have you had any discussions with him yet?
No, now after the last week, there was obviously a few eventful days with the last game, and then with the announcement on Friday. I fully respect Thomas' standing in this club that he's gained over the years. He's super ambitious, which I highly value. He's openly stated that. We now need to look at the entire goalkeeping group. Right now, he's a piece of that, and going forward, we have to see how we make the adjustments in the group, how we naturally evolve within the group. So it's about him, but it's also about the goalkeeping group in general, and we'll of course take the considerations from our goalkeeping group into that discussion.
And two lone players also going out, Michael Lado and Ben Godfrey. When we talked to Lado, he was quite sure that he was not going to continue here in Brøndby. But you won't close the door totally?
No, I would never close the door. For now, we needed to align as a club on the direction and also the financial model going forward, how we want to run, and then we need to, based upon that, develop our squad planning, the priorities we have. Ben and Lado have made contributions throughout the time here. Michael Lado just recently with a lot of good performances. So everyone has been very gutted with the red card he received, because it really didn't mirror his performance in the game, which was fantastic. And he's really hit the ground running in the last weeks when we gotten him to a point where he was on his best conditions. So we're always in close contact now going forward on his perspective and continue that discussion. In terms of the squad planning, we have clear ideas how to evolve the squad and clear priorities. Ideally, we align that with a new head coach, and I think also every player would want to know who is the guy, who is the coach I'm working with, because of course you want a coach that is convicted of you and your skills and your character. So that's a key component as well.
You talk a lot about who Brøndby is and coming home, culture, DNA, and many Brøndby fans are right now talking about which players would we want to see in the club this summer, and there are names like Christian Nørgaard, Jesper Lindstrøm, maybe Andreas Marksø, who's out of contract soon. Are you still looking to sign former Brøndby players to secure that culture and DNA?
Yeah, I think there's different ways to secure that culture. It can be by players that have played here, players that we bring through our club, is one key element. So of course we always monitor these players and where they are in their career. I think a player acquisition always has to fit different criteria. One is the prioritized position, the qualities and the profile he brings as a player, and then as a person. And now we're relating very much to the cultural aspect, the understanding of it. I do think there's also players that we bring in externally that really understand and get this club. But it is, I think, a club you can't just walk in the door and then from day one you just get it. You need to immerse yourself into it. And with all these things I said or we said on culture DNA, I always want to be cautious because I also only been here for a short time. And I don't praise myself as the cultural bearer of this club. I try as best as I can to understand it, to listen, to look back, to talk to people, talk to you, for example, because I think you can only be successful if you understand that, because otherwise you go into a direction that others will not follow. And so I'm very fortunate to have a lot of people around me who's been here longer than me, who understand the club from the core, and those are the discussions we have all the time on these things, and that's what we try to bring to our advantage now going forward, to focus on that very much, and make that part of our decisions.
There's also been a lot of talk of the club like being economically stable, and it has been a target for years to qualify into Europe. And in my lifetime, we haven't. We have only gone to Europe when we won the championship, and not qualified through the rounds. So, are we going to have to see sales also this summer in order to secure the economy? Because this year we obviously don't even have the chance to try and qualify.
Just financially speaking, of course, if we only acquire players, that leaves a deficit. I mean, that's clear. So we have to balance that out. But a big sale can always be reinvested in 3 minor acquisitions, for example. So I think it's more about we have a competitive budget, and we need to make that and use that as efficient as possible. So of course there's a strong correlation in football that clubs that spend more usually achieve more. But every year you see the clubs underperforming and overperforming, and we want to be a club that turns their budget into performance as best as they can. And we call those clubs being at the value frontier. So with the same budget, you can have a low outcome or a good outcome. And we probably over the last years have been a club who's been somewhere where the financial position was as well, around the 3rd or 4th spot. But of course, we aim to develop from there. And so it's about being reasonable in our spendings, considering the financial aspect in every decision we do. How does it impact our financial situation? And in a club like Brøndby, in a league like we have in Denmark, of course, players that are performing very well and are young are naturally inclined to move on to the top 5 leagues in the future. And we pride ourselves, and I think also this club pride ourselves of bringing players to the Premier League or to the Bundesliga or wherever that may be. So that's natural reality that we deal with, and we need to make to use it to our advantage. Of course, we want to have the sporting value of the player. There's a trend that players go earlier and earlier, and everyone here wants to see those players not only for a couple of games but for a year or 2. And then, of course, we want to maximize their value, and for that we need still a young age, performance, but also a long contract length.
And that has also been, as far as I have seen it, your biggest fingerprint on the club yet. The longer masterclass contracts, it's more systematically now that the contracts are being signed and renewed. And can you say something more about how you came in, what you processed, and then what you did strategically regarding the masterclass?
I believe it was a collective approach from us, including Björn and Jens Mikkel and all the others involved, that have worked very hard to create a strong talent pipeline, and we have to utilize that. And we always have to put ourselves in the best possible condition to have our players contracts sorted. So for us, it's also about taking, let's say, small risks in terms of renewing more aggressively year by year with the players to never be put in a spot where a player can turn us over, or an agent can turn us over. It's not only about just securing a lot of players, but it's also about showing belief and committing towards them. I think it goes both ways. And we've just evaluated the situation and the financial implications of it. If we invest into these contracts, which are reasonable contracts, of course, they are still boys, still kids, then we tend to have a bigger return on investment if we do that, because we want to. Well, now we are always creating these, the big pathways. So he gets into the Superliga, and then we sell him for, and hopefully we can reach higher benchmarks for the top prices. But there's also a ways of selling players in a medium, range of transfer fees, or selling players even before they enter the first team, because the youth market is also very competitive. So it's
like
Chukwuani, yeah. I mean, also there. We try to maximize the value of the player, and of course we would have liked to see him go through, but at the end we made the best out of the situation, and if we become a club that also produces more, of course we want to produce selectively for the first team, but we also need to increase our productivity in professional football, because even those players that go out at lower fees or big sell-ons or so on are players that have a connection to this club, that can develop at a different place and then be valuable for us to recruit them again. So I think there's different pathways from masterclass to the first team. Directly is the best, of course, but there's also steps you can take in between. And there's also that element of, as you mentioned before, with Nurga and others, that maybe that connection is so strong. I know he was not a graduate, but he embraced this club. That connection always stays, and then at some point it makes sense again.
I did a podcast with Benjamin Schmiedes in February, just after the transfer window closed. And I remember asking him, what should Brøndby's edge be? Because right now we have the third biggest budget. We don't spend nearly as much as FC and FC. Yeah. And it doesn't seem like we will in the coming years. So what should our edge be to, like, some years compete or hopefully beat them?
It all starts with the performance environment. It's about the environment, about creating conditions for players and adding players and people around the players that want to grow together collectively. So you need to have people that have that mentality, that edge to them, to want to get better, to aggressively compete day to day. It also sometimes creates some tension because they want to win, but in a genuine and in a sincere way. With that said, you need clarity around how you want to do it. Clarity, I think, is a very important value in every organization, especially in football. So, like, we want to be a club where you can knock on the door and everyone tells you the same thing. And I think we can also self-reflectively say that we're not that yet, but we need to get there. And with that, we need to communicate more. We need to align more. We need everyone across the club to be clear on what we want, and then carry it out, the sporting model and the strategy, and be open about that. Speak to the guys and the girls here in the administration to involve masterclass and the women's. Because if you create really some alignment around a shared direction, you can really release a lot of energy and commitment inside this organization.
I now have quite a clear idea of what Brøndby should look like in the coming years. If you look outside of Denmark, where do you find inspiration? Like, are there any clubs in Europe that are using this kind of model, bringing many young players, playing this style, and succeeding in competing at the top?
Yeah, I think there's inspiration in different clubs. I hope we can be an inspiration for others in the future. But if you look at the different elements, there's and the different strategic pillars we want to have, then there's different inspirations around Europe. If you just look at players coming through the academy, then I think AZ Alkmaar is a very strong example, but it's also probably the benchmark example in terms of the number of players they have in their squad and the value of their academy. Of course, people love Atletico Bilbao because it's regional based and it's identity based. But I think that is a very specific case. But
about Dortmund.
Dortmund I would say, is comparable in terms of the intensity, and intensity is their core value, but also the sincerity, like that is a sincere, honest football. And that's, I think, what relates very well to this club and this atmosphere. It's pure football. It's not a product. It's, your passion. There's Vilde Vestegnen also in this club, but also in Dortmund. It's wild also. But I would say in terms of the academy, and they are now really focusing on that in Dortmund with Thomas Broich and others who really want to push. And it's quite inspirational. He's saying, look at Barcelona, and they can do it on world-class level. They can have like 9 players from their own academy in their squad. So why can't we do it in Dortmund? Why can't we? Nothing is holding us back, and you need to have some belief in it. You can't be too ideological about it and just make that the core piece, but you need to have the strive to get closer to it maybe. So there's a lot of inspiration that we can take. There is, I think, if you look at the performance environment and how much you focus on the project and the process, you can look at BrøndbyLyd. They don't speak about results or about money. They speak about what they do day to day. There's Viking in Norway as well. So there's a lot of clubs where we can take elements, but we also look at ourselves, and we have strong values. We have strong people inside this organization. It's about bringing them together.
And lastly, of course, there's a new head coach coming in. There should also be some new assistants coming in. How is that process regarding, of course, Steve brought in some of his people. There's still 2 left, David Tivy and Ben Dawson. So 2 questions in one here. Are they going to stay, Tivy and Dawson? And with now Henrik Hansen and Alan Tate out also, how are you gonna build the team around the head coach?
Yeah, the situation now definitely gives us a chance to shape the coaching staff. Most importantly, with the head coach appointment, and a head coach very likely has 1 assistant, which is, I think, also important, because if you're a head coach and you bring out new messaging and new approach, then you need to have a multiplicator of that and a trusted guy next to you. So I think that's the usual setup. I think Ben and Tivy have done a great job of getting into this club and understanding the environment and contributing on their specific tasks. Of course, they are connected to Steve and Alan and have built a personal relationship with them in the past, but also now. So what we did now, or what I did, is I called them after the appointment, because for them, I think this departure means something different due to the history. So I gave them all the time also to just consider and have a thought and calm down for a second about it, to think where they stand on this. There's possible solutions. There's a possible solution that there's another departure, but there's also the chance that continuity will stay. But it also depends on the head coach that's coming. Not in terms of making the final decision, but about realizing, okay, this is a head coach we bring in, and these are the competencies we need around it, because we don't need only to build a head coach or to recruit a head coach, but to build a strong coaching staff that can get to the players on all levels necessary, that can build a good training design and methodology, and has different human skills as well. And we have to sit where the new coach and the existing ones fit together, or when we need a different angle to it.
Julius, thank you so much. Let's do a podcast on September something, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, regarding when the transfer window closes. It's a little different.
When my eyes are like not even open anymore, and I'll be fully ready. Then you get the best answers out of me, huh?
That's when we do it. So that's a deal.
Well, that's good. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah.
Thank you, Julius, and god arbejdslyst, as we say in Danish.
Tak.
Tak til dig derude, som har lyttet med. Det her var en special BrøndbyLyd, og igen skal jeg undskylde min stemme. Jeg ved ikke, hvorfor jeg altid bliver hæs, når jeg skal lave de her store interviews. Men sådan er det. Vi er mere BrøndbyLyd i næste uge, når vi laver en stor sæsonevaluering og optag til trænerjagten. Så stay tuned, og vi lyttes ved.